Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Coast-to-Coast Combat Hour. I'm your host, Matthew Hawkins, and I'm joined by my co-host, Ed Carbajal. And on a weekly basis, we plan to bring you the biggest news and interviews in the world of combat sports. Ed, we survived another busy week. How's it on the New Jersey coast there?
I mean, busy enough still. I mean, obviously, I know early in the week, Paulie and Lobov were training from the BKFC thing, but obviously, we're coming off of a huge weekend of a lot of fights. You were at the Bellator, right? That was Friday night.
Yeah, that kind of kicked everything off Friday night here at the Pechanga Indian Reservation in Temecula. I mean, a fun night of fights. Didn't get the knockouts that I predicted on our prediction show, but definitely was fun. Night kind of kicked off with Joey Davis, one of their up and coming prospects that Bellator's taken under their wings. Got a huge knockout early on in the prelims, actually in one of the actual prelims before the main card. That was fun to see. He's obviously interesting. You know, you got a wrestler that throws a lot of spinning kicks and a lot of flashy stuff. So when somebody can do that and has the takedown ability he has, that's going to open up a lot of doors and definitely be interesting to see where his future goes with that. But after that, the main card kicked off, and Joe Schilling didn't get the knockout over Keith Berry. Berry was tough, fought a pretty smart fight, I thought. Used some of his takedowns to kind of neutralize Schilling, but in the long run, Schilling got too many dominant positions and was able to bust up Berry pretty damn good. You caught that fight too?
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say that was the one that you said was like a local beef that they settled, so it was kind of a big deal for you guys in your area, right?
Yeah, I mean the crowd was into it. A lot of Keith Berry fans there actually, uh, which wasn't surprising, but I would say the majority of the crowd was probably that were cheering or that had a stake in the fight were on his side. But Schilling's just too good. He hit him early in the first round. He caught him really good and busted his eye up, and then in the third round, the elbows and ground and pound got to him and uh, put a lot of blood in the cage. Kind of a funny little side note. One of the Bellator cutmen, I don't know his name, not Matt Marsden, but one of the other guys came walking up and he was talking to somebody in front of me, and he had missed that fight. I don't know if he was late getting to the event. I'm not sure if he was in the back working with one of the earlier fighters who had been injured or what. But
Maybe.
he came walking out and he goes, I smell blood. He goes, did somebody bleed a lot in the last fight? And they, obviously people looked over him and go, yeah, Barry was leaking like a stuck pig. And he goes, I can smell the blood in the air. So it was kind of a weird thing. And I'm, imagine being around that much blood, you probably do. But
yeah.
I thought it kind of made me chuckle. But after that fight, then we got the world class fighter Andrei Korshkov against Mike Jasper. Workman performance by Korshkov. I felt like he probably kind of coasted after the first round and just wanted to make sure he got the win. Ended up winning a unanimous decision.
Yeah, I found that odd actually, because I know that wasn't his original opponent. So I for some reason I don't know why I think that's a factor as far as being able to. I mean, these guys are all usually an alternate is already ready to fight, and most of these guys stay semi ready and close to weight, when they're in that age group and at this level in the sport. So I don't know why, but as I was watching it, I was actually when I got out of training with my training partners, we were watching it at a pool hall. And I kept saying to one of my buddies, Alex, I said to him, Alex, I was like, I don't know why this is taking so long. I thought Koreshkov would have gotten a knockout, but I mean, like I said, it's kind of messed up on my part to think that because these guys are always ready, and it was a good fight. I mean, still the outcome I expected though.
Yeah, I mean, Korshkov outclassed him. Jasper showed to be tough. In the first round, I thought it was going to end in a knockout. In the first, Korshkov came out and was seemed to be hurting him with some stuff, but it just seemed like about midway through the second round, he kind of just realized that he could basically just get through this fight, not suffer any injuries, not really risk anything, and maybe perhaps he realized Jasper was a tougher out than he expected, and just decided to grind out the victory. But he needed to get a win coming off the loss to Lima, 2 losses in a row in the the shark pit that is the welterweight division in Bellator. A win is
remember when it used to be the bantamweight division? I feel like that changed.
Yeah, it was bantamweight and then featherweight, and now it's kind of welterweight. So it was a big win for him. And then that brought us to the co-main event, and that was kind of the emotional fight of the night. Daniel Strauss for Shane Krugton. I don't really know what to say, man. Strauss came out and looked outstanding. Hurt him on the feet and ended up finishing him with a rear naked choke. From the crowd, it looked more like a little bit of a neck crank, or a face crank. But I don't know how you saw it. I know it's listed as a rear naked choke victory, but either way, I mean, if you would have told me he was going to come in and finish his opponent in a minute, in a minute into the fight, I probably would have told you I didn't think that was going to happen. But
no, I mean, when we recorded last week and we talked about it, I was actually concerned knowing what he went through with the accident and the recovery and the rehab, and it's just like, I mean, that just goes to show you, man, if you've got the will to get back to your own space, he proved right there that it's definitely doable. I mean, especially coming from being told you're not going to walk and stuff, let alone fight at that level professionally. So, I mean, God bless him.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to even think. I mean, for a perfectly healthy person who hasn't gone anything to get into the cage is crazy enough, but to have gone through that and so quickly. I mean, we're not talking 5 years down the line after, this is what, 20 months ago or something like that, 2 years ago. I mean, it's nothing, a blink of the eye when it comes to going through something that crazy and that serious. So all props to Daniel Strauss. I mean, I don't really know where he fits in. I don't know, where his opponent necessarily is, but was coming into that fight. But it opens up a lot of doors. I mean, obviously he's a 2-time former champion, so who knows? But again, hats off to him and really a great performance. That opened the door for what very well might be Bellator's fight of the year up until this point. A true barn burner. We talked to Syed a couple weeks ago, and the fight didn't end up going his way in the judges' minds. 29-28, essentially, 2 rounds to 1. I think is the right call. I did rewatch the fight, and I actually thought it was a little closer. Than when I was there live. Being there live, obviously the crowd was heavily behind him. And I just felt, and Gertz came out and dropped him early. I mean, 30 seconds, 40 seconds into the fight. I know,
that was,
caught him in the middle of a firefight. Awad survived, and that might be where you'd have to watch it again and see. It's a tough to take that round away from Gertz, but I almost felt like Awad controlled the rest of that round after about 45 seconds in. But when you see a guy, drop a guy and land a little bit of ground and pound. So that first round was kind of a Gertz getting it, and then Awad, I felt like kind of getting the momentum back. Second round, kind of the same thing. Gertz came out strong, and then Awad just took over, started throwing flying knees. And waving him on. I mean, they stood in the middle of the ring and just, they just swung on each other.
I mean, talk about throwing caution to the wind, which is weird because he's talked about it here before, but I guess, I mean, not for nothing, he said he when he was on our podcast, you saw it in this fight too. I mean, as far as his ring awareness or cage awareness, I forget what he referred to it as, but you definitely saw that in those exchanges when they went and they started swinging at each other. That's one thing. I mean, he talked about learning from his losses and things like that. So definitely an improvement as far as that goes. But I mean, when you got 2 guys going for it the way that they went for it, man, it's like you said. I mean, I thought it was close too. But I mean, man, I don't know. I honestly don't know. And I feel like that's one of those fights that maybe there's folks that didn't watch it, because literally, like I told you, I train on Friday nights now, and afterward we went out, and we were watching the fight, shooting pool. But when that fight happened, nobody was shooting pool. Everybody was watching that fight. You know what I mean? Because it was just so amazing. Yeah, I mean, like I always give Awad credit when he's on here, and uh, when we're not recording, when I talk about him, I mean, the guy definitely he never not brings it. So that's definitely a guy that Bellator needs to take care of.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the second round again was close. I scored it for Watt, and then the third round, with basically kind of the fight on the line, with about I don't know 2.5 minutes or so left, maybe in the fight, he went for a takedown, which was a little bit of a surprise. His corner, I believe, was calling for it. There was so much chaos going on. I'm not going to try to act like I remember exactly what everybody was yelling, but I believe I remember his corner calling for a takedown. He shot in for a single leg, and Gertz was able to defend. I'm a big fan of Jason Herzog. It did look like Awad took some shots to the back of the head while on the ground.
Yeah, yeah.
And I know Sayed was complaining to him about that. When I rewatched it, it wasn't as blatant as it seemed live, but I would definitely say he took a few. I think that's what really swayed the judges. The last, once he got back to his feet, it was back to even again. I felt like this was a fight where he got into a firefight. And honestly, his reach kind of hurt him. I feel like in the exchanges, when Awad would land 3 punches, Gertz was getting off that 4th. And I don't know if that has anything to do with your arm reach, or it just seemed like his punches were a little bit more compact, and he was able to kind of land that defining punch in the when they went at it into a big when they were brawling, and it was okay, we're gonna each throw 5 punches. I felt like Gertz got that last punch in a lot of those confrontations, and just a great fight.
Yeah.
I saw Twitter blowing up. I saw people going, "Hey, turn on Bellator." Craziness going down in the cage tonight. Stuff like that. I don't think it's going to hurt him. I think it's a great fight for a
No,
rematch.
yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely, definitely. And it's definitely one of those things that's like, funny. Obviously, they weren't supposed to be the main event, and if they're on a future card facing each other, they're most likely gonna be the main event without without it having to do with anybody falling off the card. It'll be them.
Yeah, no, I mean that's fine. I feel like put those guys on the opening bout of a huge card. We know they announced yesterday, or I believe it was yesterday, they're coming to MSG on June 14th.
Yeah.
To me that's a fight that's a great opening card, or opening fight on a big 5-fight, 6-fight main card.
Yeah.
Really get the crowd into it. Give them a big spotlight. I mean, both of those guys have really put a lot of their career in on the smaller, Indian reservation.
Yeah. Definitely be on the main card. Yeah.
Let those guys bang it out in front of 10, 15,000 people, and I think they both deserve it. I mean, both when both guys go in there and risk life and limb to put on a show, knowing the situation that they were last minute main event, perhaps the card hadn't lived up to the complete hype with the violence getting to that point, and to go out there and really just bring the event home was awesome. And and to see two guys really go at it and do damage to each other, but nobody suffer any kind of catastrophic injury. Both guys seem like they'll be able to walk out of there and fight again in a couple months. So
yeah,
just a great fight. Anybody who hasn't seen it, I recommend that they catch that. I don't know if that's on the Bellator app. I'm not exactly sure how all their replays work, but easily a top 10 fight that we've seen this year in mixed martial arts.
Yeah.
So that ended, and then that took us to Saturday. And we got an earlier start time than usual due to the ESPN. Got to compliment ESPN where compliments due.
Love it.
For you East Coast guys, getting the 4, I think it was the 4 p.m. main card start, where 7 p.m. for you, 4 p.m. for me. I obviously don't mind it. It happens during the day. It's great, but it's nice to see them doing that. No reason to have you guys starting 10 o'clock.
Hell no. I used to have to get iced coffee and shit just to stay up for those things.
Yeah,
or sleep, take a nap and then go out. Like even with the pay-per-views, I have to take a nap before I go out to watch it at a bar. which is
Yeah,
crazy.
I mean, and that was the same thing for me being in Nashville, 2 weeks ago. Having the main card actually start at 7 o'clock local time instead of what normally would have been 9 o'clock. So it just makes more sense for a fight night when they can kind of flex the time.
Yeah.
With that said, ooh man, no, the night didn't start off completely violent, but it sure as hell ended violent.
Yeah, man.
I would say the uh, you know, not in a violent fight per se, but Michelle Waterson put on an extremely good performance. I
Yeah,
believe both of us picked her to win
yeah.
going into that
Which,
fight.
which is weird because she was the underdog, but obviously, I mean, I think from what I saw the highlights of it. I know I told you I didn't catch it because I switched locations when I was watching it. I did catch the main event. I'm actually, if folks watching the video of this, I have it playing in the background right now. That's what my eyes are on. But so she showed a lot of like I guess in boxing they refer to it as ring generalship. She showed a lot of like just being smarter in there and doing what she has to do. Obviously, if she knows she's not going to get a win, but she knows she can outscore somebody with control and output and stuff like that. So she's definitely I mean, I think that's when it shows that when your mind gets to a championship level, if a finish seems like it's out of the picture for you, you find another way to win. I mean, if you have to do it on the cards, then you do it on the cards.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what we both said when we were predicting the fight. I mean, I felt like her veteran level would just kind of step up, and she would really use her mind to figure out how to win this fight. We didn't know how Carolina would recover after her big knockout. She made it through the fight, but it just Watterson's awkward karate style of striking seemed to throw her off, and then she used some great trip takedowns and
Hmm.
and stuff like that to really kind of mix in the mixed martial arts aspect of the fight, and just I mean, just a great performance by her. She came in the fight, I believe, ranked number 9. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what they're gonna do as far as title fights down the line
Yeah,
after the upcoming championship fight with Namajunas and
Andrade.
Andrade, but and I know Namajunas has a pretty dominant win over Watterson already, but she's obviously marketable. And if you're ESPN and you want to strike while it's hot, she's one to slide into a main
Yeah,
event. And
yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people too forget that she used to be a champ at Invicta. Was she like the atomweight champ or something like
she
that
was
in
the
Invicta?
105-pound champ,
Yeah.
yeah,
So I
for a
mean,
while.
that's just a testament to a lot of the top female. I mean, everyone knows that the UFC gets a lot of their female talent from Invicta, and that just goes to show you how big that talent pool is there. Like if they held the title there, they're definitely worth getting ranked in the top 15, top 10 when they transition over to the UFC and putting on main cards like that.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, if you look at most of the top women in all the weight classes, they're all from Invicta. I mean, there was a time when most of them were in Invicta at the same time before the UFC really embraced the women's MMA, and then they eventually opened up the 115-pound division, which
Yeah.
which brought over a lot of the 105-pound and 115-pound, and even now that they have the 125-pound, it's they've Invicta's kind of been taken over by the UFC in a sense. They're obviously developing a lot of talent, but they don't quite have the depth that they had a couple years ago. But when you reach the top of the pinnacle there, you're obviously, like you said, ready to make the move and make some waves in the UFC.
Hmm.
After that, the violence kind of started. Uh, Josh Emmett, Michael Johnson. Michael Johnson controlling most of the fight, looking really good. And then with about 45 seconds left in the fight, he ran into a huge Chuck Liddell-like overhand right and
Yeah.
froze him solid, dropped him to the ground like a bag of ice, and just a devastating knockout. One that Emmett really needed, coming off of getting brutalized himself in a devastating knockout by Stevens. I don't know, man. It's weird watching Michael Johnson some of these times. He's got wins over guys like Ferguson and Poirier and stuff like that. And then, watching this fight, I was just impressed by how good he looked. And then there it comes, the Hail Mary basically, and it puts him on kind of his record is slowly falling apart. but he still seems like when he's on his game, he can hang and beat any of the top guys in the division.
Yeah. Is that what's on now?
That's probably the one catching up. But
yeah.
But we'll but anyways, yeah, Emmett with a huge knockout. And then your East Coast boy David Branch.
Oh please. that was hard to watch for me. I mean, I'm a David Branch fan, so it was hard to watch him. I mean, I think that's when I finally got settled with my buddy that I was out with. We had the fights switched over for us, and literally when they switched over, he was already locked into that guillotine, and I was like, oh come on, man. I don't know, man. I mean, he's up there in age. Who knows what he needs to get back on track. He hasn't been as active on social. I usually follow his social. That's what I was trying to look for when you were talking about the last fight, but because to see if he's put anything up, because it's like a lot of times he puts stuff up and it goes under the radar. Like when he wanted, just feel like maybe he wanted that fight with Jacare, so bad, and then he didn't get it, and then he took that other fight that kind of threw him off a schedule. I don't know. I don't know, man. I mean, it looks like I just brought up his. I'm looking at it now. It looks like he's in good spirits, So
it happens. I think the shock was the submission. I mean, I don't think anybody in the world thought he was going to get subbed, being the black belt he is. I don't know. He's kind of at a tough spot in his career now. Obviously, he's I think he's fallen out of the rankings now in the middleweight division.
Yeah, he was up there, but yeah.
People will look at it as a downgrade, but if I'm David Branch, I might be calling up the PFL and seeing if they got a spot in the 205 $1 million tournament. I mean, it's prize fighting, and he was their 205-pound champion in the World Series of Fighting before it took over, and I don't know. It ain't gonna hurt nobody to go win 4 or 5 fights in a row, win $1 million, and then come back to the UFC. Get a little momentum going. Obviously that probably won't happen, but I with the PFL flashing that money out there and the new ESPN deal, I don't think it looks like too bad considering that the talent pool is not on par.
Yeah, I mean they just finished their round 3 of their roster selection, so it might be too late. I think they already have 68 fighters total, which is all they want for this season. There's always next season, but I mean I don't know if that contractually, I don't know where that put David Branch in the UFC. I don't know if he renewed and there's still some fights left or whatever, but so we'll see. We just got to wait and see what happened. I just, that fight with Rockhold, man, he was winning and then he lost, and I just feel like he's been trying to fight his way back up since, but he's definitely, I mean, the guy's one of the few earlier champs, back when it was the World Series of Fighting, had both titles, defended both titles. So, and I know we were talking about this before we started recording, but sometimes, man, the wear and tear of the fights you put on, you can carry that with you, and maybe it's just starting to take its toll, man. I mean, this is a young man's, and by young, I mean like there's dudes coming in 19 years old. So.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about David Branch. We haven't even mentioned the guy who beat him, and Jack Hermanson is an animal. 19-4 now, on a huge run. He again, if he turns out to be what potentially he could be, then it doesn't look like as bad of a loss. But considering that it was so quick and it was a submission, it'll be something that'll probably haunt Branch for a little bit, because I think he's going to kick himself for not. I mean, obviously that's a move that probably only happens one every 100 fights, that he's going to fight somebody on that level. So
yeah,
that was a surprise, and then it brought us to the what we've come to expect from Justin Gaethje and Edson Barboza. Just a 2.5 minutes of hell.
Yeah.
Just violence, swinging. Gaethje pretty much controlled it. But with Barboza, you never know. I mean, his kicks and everything comes.
Yeah, what was funny is like everybody said they're probably just gonna leg kick the hell out of each other, and literally like maybe the first 20 seconds of that fight was them leg kicking the hell out of each other.
I was laughing about that too. I mean, they were just snapping at each other.
Yeah,
legs. And then Gagey caught him and put him out cold. First time I believe Barboza's ever been KO'd. 2.5 minutes into round one. You know, I mean, Gagey's just a money machine for the UFC
And that's
if
the
they're
guy he
smart
was
with it.
afraid of. Like, admittedly, on record, said he was the fight he wanted because he was afraid of him was Barboza because he knew about the power of his kicks. I mean, not just the leg kicks, body kicks. You know, obviously he's dropped a lot of people with that power in his legs. So Gaethje wanted that fight when he got to the UFC, kind of like to conquer his own fear type of thing. And you saw he kind of hinted at it at the post fight. I know he did a few interviews, but the post fight cage, the one he did right in the cage, he said, so he talked about why he just doesn't get, and which it is a weird thing when you compete. Like you don't, there's a weird focus. Like you don't get scared or you don't get nervous, and some guys are like that for competition. I remember I asked David Adiv that when I was early back and when I was young and I competed in jiu-jitsu because I used to not get nervous, but I was just really focused. And the nerves usually, all the emotions and stuff come in after the fact, and that's when you start getting excited or whatever. And that seems to be the case with Jake Gaethje. So I mean, hey man, more power to him. I hope he can. I just hope he lasts, long enough to fight for a title. If he fights for a title and doesn't defend it, I'm fine with that because he already defended enough at World Series of, he's been a champion. So if he gets the chance to get a belt here in the UFC, I'm fine if he doesn't defend it because I really don't want to see that guy like I don't know I don't want to see him like drooling and stuff when he's old.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. We decided that we're not going to get into all the BS that's taking place with some of the guys at the top of
Yeah,
the lightweight division. So we're going to bypass that. So I don't know exactly what fights he goes to. Obviously, we have Poirier and Holloway coming up
yeah,
for the
yeah.
interim lightweight belt. Uh,
You
you know,
know,
I
like
don't I don't know with Gage yet. You know, obviously he already fought Poirier.
yeah.
Um,
I wouldn't
and,
mind seeing it again.
No, but I feel like there's fights out there.
Yeah,
Ferguson, I don't know if Ferguson takes that fight because he probably feels like he's in line for a championship
yeah.
and we're probably rightfully so. The fight that's kind of been talked about the last couple times has been Paul Felder. And I know Felder's not up there in the rankings with some of those guys, but that sounds like a hell of a fun fight to me. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah. That's actually the other interview that I listened to the audio on. Felder spoke to him in the post the backstage stuff after the fight, and Felder said it to him. He's like, "I want to fight you next," and Gaethje was just like, "You don't want to do that to yourself." But it just seems like I mean, right. And the other thing Gaethje said too is because rankings don't even matter anymore the way they're making fights. So
uh-huh.
I mean, there's fighters that seem to be wanting to hold on to it, but if the fight's going to make money, it's going to make sense for the promotion the way they've been doing things. I mean, not for nothing. You just mentioned the interim title fight for the lightweight division, and in my mind, I was like, two thoughts crossed my mind. A, did I forget that I heard that news? And B, I probably forgot that I heard that news because there's so many goddamn interim titles, you know?
Yeah, no, I don't know. I think the Felder fight, I think the winner of Cowboy Raging Al is a good matchup, a fun matchup. So, I mean, there's a ton out there for
Yeah.
Gagey. If he needs to sit outside the top 3 or 4 and kind of let those guys settle it out and figure out where things are going legally and
Mm.
and everything else. Again, we're
Yeah.
not gonna get into that.
Yeah,
So,
he
but
he just he racked up another fight of the night bonus, which was just like, of course he did.
no, I mean, and that's the thing. I mean, make that money, man. I mean, that's tremendous.
Yeah,
There's really nothing you can say about it. I mean, he's one of the few people right now in the world of mixed martial arts where you'd pay your money to go watch him fight every time
yeah,
and know you're going to get your money's worth. I mean, I don't even think it's possible for him to have a boring fight, short of them deciding to give him like, a 85er who decides to lay on him or something.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
anybody 170 and down, I can't even imagine it being a slow fight or something that you wouldn't be happy to pay money to watch. And the most of his fights have been free on TV, so That's been pretty crazy, and I feel like in the ESPN world with SportsCenter and everything, he could end up becoming quite the name brand for the next
Yeah, I mean,
as long as his career decides to
they went up.
keeps going.
I saw some stats, statistic about that with the viewership. So not comparatively, since with all the ESPN red cards, or any MMA that's been on ESPN since the crossover happened at the beginning of this year. This they said it averaged 886,000, but it still peaked at 1.4 million when that fight happened. So I mean, it's still better than anything ever on Fox. And I mean, not for nothing, I'm not gonna keep mentioning my whole gripe with Plus, but I mean, obviously you're drawing in eyeballs here. I mean, I don't know what you're getting on ESPN Plus, but obviously folks are tuning in.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the new ESPN numbers are pretty low. I don't think they can be really happy with those. I mean, it's what they would get on. I mean, it's not far from the Fox stuff right now, but I think that's you had the NCAA tournament. There was some stuff
Yeah,
going up against it.
yeah,
Um, the peak of 1.4 million solid. I think you had the initial jump. Obviously, Cain Velasquez is a big draw
yeah,
for new fans and old fans. Plus, the Mexican market is obviously big on him. And you get two big heavyweights, and you got him and Ngannou throwing down. It's going to draw. When the heavyweights are on, they're going to be a big draw. So we'll see what happens. I don't trust any of the ESPN Plus numbers. I have a hard time believing the subscription numbers that they're trying to sell. I don't know anybody who even has it. you know? So,
yeah,
and when I'm hearing people like you and some other big fight fans that I know refusing to pay for it and stuff like that, it can't be. I just have a hard time believing that these millions of people are buying it. So
yeah,
we'll see what happens. Be curious to see the pay-per-view numbers. We'll never see them, but I
yeah,
think we'll at least get an idea publicly through Twitter and talking to people who
yeah.
normally watch the fights. I think we're going to get back to the era where you're going to ask a friend about the fight, how they see the fight, and they're not even going to know it happened.
Yeah,
And
bars will get busier, even if it's like it won't have that Conor Rousey effect where, bars were packed only for their pay-per-views. I think you'll probably find more fight fans at bars for pay-per-views if you have to go through their paywall to pay for a pay-per-view.
yeah, and the only thing that really could change that is potentially ESPN. ESPN obviously carries a ton of weight and can promote the hell out of stuff.
Hmm.
So that might be something that makes up for the lack of you know ability to get it on pay-per-view. They might be able to open up a lot more eyes to people to at least let them know how to get it and where it's at. Whereas Fox um, didn't really have the name brand or the carry to do that. It didn't seem like so. There's that. So that was UFC. So we had the great Bellator main event. We had a couple outstanding knockouts in UFC. Uh, for some of us hardcore fans, we stayed up all night watching the one card. Uh, Fun card. Couple surprises. Um, I'm not going to go through the whole card. Gary Tonin uh, just demolished his opponent. 4 minutes of just total domination. Finished it off with a TKO and ground and pound. He stays undefeated and really a potential future star in MMA.
Yeah,
Have to see how when his chin gets checked, how all that holds up and how he reacts maybe to tasting a bunch of his own blood. But I have no reason to believe that he's not going to be a big fish in this pond here. So there's that. Surprise of the night, Eddie Alvarez came in and got knocked out 4 minutes into the first round by Timothy Nastyukin. Not a lot of people knew who Nastyukin was coming into this fight, but they know who he is now. Pretty much wrecked Eddie from the opening bell. Controlled the fight. It seemed like Alvarez was just off his game. I don't know how much that had to do with Nastyukin, but eventually he got him up against the cage, battered him up, damaged his eye, and Eddie basically just crumbled into the corner, and the ref stopped it.
yeah. That's the fight I was talking about, where where I made that comment about just the accumulation of damage. When we were talking about Branch, I mean that's the fight we were talking about before we started recording. So I mean, I don't know. I mean, one of the motivations he said he had was not re-signing with the UFC and going to one was that it's the one title he hasn't held yet. And I mean, rough start if that's what the goal is, but it was his first fight there, so maybe maybe that's just how sometimes like they talk about octagon jitters for the UFC. But I mean, one is pretty big. I mean, on that side of the world. So and it was a pretty big card considering that they had it. That's what I have queued up next here is the one card. They have the partnership with Turner Broadcasting where you can catch it after the fact. So. And through the BR Live app. So lots of stuff happening in MMA all over, and that was a big one for them. Obviously, it was one of their bigger cards. So maybe it just maybe it could be weight on his shoulders or the acclimating to going to that side of the world and all the media he had to do. Because I know he did stuff here and then had to go over there. I honestly don't know how fighters do it half the time.
Yeah, I mean, that might have had something to do with it. It might have had something that his opponent was just better than people gave him credit for.
Yeah.
We always, when you live in kind of the UFC world, people act like when you leave the UFC, you're leaving top competition. And I mean, I think this event pretty much proved that there's top competition all over the world, and a bunch of it is in one fighting. After that fight, Demetrius Johnson made his debut. He was able to get the win in the first, actually in the second round, 2.5 minutes into the second round. He got a guillotine choke.
Tight guillotine.
but his opponent Wakamatsu, a Pancrase champion, I mean, he brought it. He brought it to Demetrius, and I mean, the first round was outstanding. He eventually got outclassed. Johnson, one of the all-time greats of this sport, was able to get the win. But I mean, Wakamatsu, to me, his stock rose even in the loss. Johnson moves on in the featherweight. I'm sorry, the flyweight tournament. After that, I honestly fell asleep at that point. That was about 3:45, 4 a.m. my time.
Yeah, wow.
Woke up the next morning and caught the title fights. One of my favorite guys who's never fought in the UFC and one of the best fighters who's never fought in the UFC, Bibiano Fernandez, a jiu-jitsu ace, got his title back from Kevin Bellington in their trilogy fight. Unfortunately, it was due to disqualification and from some elbows to the back of the head. I'm tempted to bite my lip on it, but I feel like Bibiano kind of looked for an easy way out of this one. I have no room to say that, never having been a fighter, but from my perspective watching it, I always find it interesting when a guy takes a couple illegal shots and he acts like he's been shot with a sniper rifle. But if they stand in the middle of the ring and hit each other in the face 38 times, he keeps going. So, again, one of my favorite fighters. I don't know. He's got the belt now. I guess imagine they'll have a rematch or a fourth fight. But is what it is. And then to me, the main event, Shinya Aoki got back his belt in a rematch with Edward Foyang, and dominated. Round one, arm triangle choke. Aoki did the Aoki thing in front of the Japan crowd. Again, one of the greats that never fought in the UFC. He moves to 48-3 with losses to really only notable fighters like Ben Askren, Mock Sakurai, Joachim Hansen, and names like that. So great night for one. I know I saw people that were there seem to really enjoy the card, and I look forward to their next one. I don't know when they're coming back to Japan. I think they got something planned roughly for later this year, but the more Asian MMA, the more better the world of MMA is. So, and that brings us to this weekend. There's not a lot of MMA action, but this Tuesday, you were out at the at the Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship open workouts. I didn't even know that was going down. I thought you had some kind of media obligation, but I didn't realize it was for that until I started seeing your videos and some of the news.
I thought I told you, because we usually record this Tuesday night. I thought I told you it was for that.
You said you had a media obligation stuff or something like that, but I didn't realize it was for the bare knuckle. I
Yeah.
feel like that's something I've caught all of their shows up until this point, but now that you're kind of getting into the bare knuckle world out there,
Yeah.
hanging out with the Rumbles and Paulie Malignaggi's and stuff. What was your take from that open
Well,
workout?
I mean, so I went out there. We got the press release like that Friday or whatever. I forgot. I think I don't remember when I messaged you for because I thought I really thought I told you about it. Sorry, I didn't give you the detail. I know from the train. I think I might have texted you the details for sure. But either way, so yeah, I went out there for mymmanews.com. So everything I went out there for them to cover the open workout because they cover bare knuckle boxing a lot. And so all the stuff I did from that event you can read about there. I'll schedule it like before the event on Twitter too, if you're following me on Twitter. But yeah, I mean, so it was in Manhattan at Mendez Boxing, and it was underground, so I didn't have the best reception. I actually couldn't start sending stuff out right away. But weird, like just seemed like your regular media. It's weird because it's not really boxing. It's because it's bare knuckle boxing. So there's obviously a different vibe to it. Just not like I've been to boxing stuff here in New York before, so there's definitely a demographic and a weird vibe when you go to boxing stuff in New York. But I didn't get that when I went there for this, and which is one of the things that I actually lost a few followers for writing this goddamn article. The first article I wrote was on Paulie Malignaggi and how I thought he deserved some credit because he's actually doing, he's stepping out of his comfort zone. I know it's still boxing, but it's bare knuckle boxing. There's things he has to do differently. There's a lot of MMA guys here that are not coming from boxing. You're going against different styles with limited rule sets still, but these guys, there's guys that are coming at you with different things. And if you watch it was supposed to be media for Malignaggi and then the open workout for Artem Lobov. And obviously when they crossed each other, that all went to crap. So Malignaggi was there first. He did about a 20-minute media. He did Q&A with us. That's up. All of this stuff from that day is on the Blogboard Chungle YouTube channel, by the way. So if you look at that video, from my point of view, I was to Malignaggi's left. If you're facing him, it'll be kind of like the far right. He took questions. He answered them all. And then somebody warned him that Lobov was coming in. So he said, then let me leave. But there's only one way in and out of that place. So they crossed each other, and it's going up and downstairs. So they crossed each other, and you've seen enough media scrums and stuff. Like, I was like, all right, I'm not expecting much to happen here, so I don't want to lose my spot at this designated area for media. So as I'm looking down at my camera to save the stuff I just shot, all of a sudden I hear talking, and I'm like, yeah, they're just saying stuff. Next thing you know, people are being pulled apart, and I did tweet that video. My phone was messed up, but I ran over to record something, and they were already broken apart. So I didn't see who got hit or who did what first. I actually didn't see the video. There's a really good video actually that if you go on bareknuckle.tv, their guy's video is the best one where you see that Malignaggi slapped him first. So, but it was weird because from my point of view, Malignaggi's left eye had like a red mark. So that's why when I spoke to Lobov immediately after, like they pulled him apart. They pulled him towards where the media was being done, and then Malignaggi said everything that you saw him say, and then they did Lobov did like maybe 7 minutes of media. Then they put him in the ring because he was supposed to work out. So they put him in the ring, and that's when I got to him. And I actually have the video's up on the YouTube channel, but the audio's pretty clear. So I'll attach that to the end of our segment of the show. I'll attach his audio, and I actually spoke to Rumble, Anthony Rumble Johnson's head of fighter relations there. So I spoke to him, both of them, right after. So that audio will be attached to this podcast as well. But I mean, I'll quote David Feldman, who's the promoter, the president of BKFC. I'll quote him and say, obviously things took a turn, but one of the things Rumble said, I mean, you'd be damned if you don't want to see that fight now, coincidentally, a lot of people think that's the fight that this weekend, but it's not. It's Lobov is fighting Jason Knight on the main event of BKFC 5. So, but they're looking at whoever wins will probably get Malignaggi in June, is what my understanding is.
Yeah, I think pretty much no matter what happens, Lobov's fighting Malignaggi.
Yeah.
I don't think a new
Yeah.
promotion like this would let that fight slip away unless Lobov just gets decapitated, which
Yeah.
could happen. Jason Knight is no joke. I'm kind of surprised, honestly, how he's flown under the radar coming into this fight.
Yeah.
Um, you know, it's hard to handicap bare knuckle boxing. Maybe you got to go with Lobov because he's known for a little bit heavier hands, but Knight could easily be much quicker and more technical and take this fight.
Yeah.
Pretty easy if.
You know what's weird is like the take on Knight from both Malignaggi and Lobov, because that was one of the questions that was asked at the media day. They both have I mean, because obviously they're coming from MMA, they both have this belief that they don't know about his striking because they both consider him like a ground guy, jiu-jitsu guy. But I mean, obviously, if he's coming to bare knuckle boxing, he's got to come with a hefty level of striking skill that you would think. I don't think the promotion's just going to sign, anybody. You know what I mean? Just because they want bodies. I'm pretty sure that they want to see enough footage and fights. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, all these guys are going to be able to throw hands. I mean, I know Jason Knight's a really good submission guy too, but if you look down the card, most of the guys that are MMA based are strikers.
Yeah.
Are mainly strikers. Chris Lieben, Johnny Bedford.
Justin Baseman is on that card.
Justin Baseman, Chase Sherman, fighting Sam Shoemaker,
Yeah.
one of the staples of bare knuckle fighting, and in the lone heavyweight bout of the night, Isaac Valley Flag, on the card, Christina Faria, co-main event against Britton Hart in a female fight. I don't know, man. I've always enjoyed the bare knuckle fight events. They've had 4 events so far. I'd say 3 of the 4 were probably 8 rating or higher. One of the events was a little bit slow. I think it was the second one, but that's on the Fight TV app. So it's a little bit heavy on price. I think it's $29.99.
Yeah, the prelims are free though. I think when I looked at the schedule,
the 2 prelims are usually free. I don't really recognize any of the names on those fights. Looks like they have a female fight and then a male fight. No weight listed, but yeah, like I said, it's kind of a slow week. Other than that, I know Quintet is on late Saturday night on
all
UFC
ladies
Fight
card.
Pass.
Yeah,
all female quintet. So that could be interesting for the late night dwellers of MMA fandom. But other than that, I think the bare knuckle is going to kind of carry the torch this weekend, and
I wonder
should
if
have
they planned it
like
I wonder if they planned it, like looked at schedules and stuff like that.
I mean, I don't know how much you can plan it,
Yeah.
just because there's so much MMA going on right now. But it really worked out for them.
Yeah.
If they planned it, great. If it's pure luck, but I feel like the eyes of the fight world are pretty much on them. So I imagine they'll have a pretty good buy rate. And for a younger organization like them, even the people that are streaming the fights and stuff, just getting the name out there and getting people's eyeballs on the event has got to be a positive. So
yeah, and just like I said, all the video from that media day is on there, so there's a lot of quick questions and answered about the weekend too that are on the video. Just for folks with sensitive ears, Lobov drops motherfuckers like he's Richard Pryor. I don't know where he got that from, but I never even noticed it in the past. But having him all heated and excited, even when I spoke to him, he must have dropped 2 or 3 motherfuckers. He even called his boss a motherfucker at the when he was talking about what happened, which I found hilarious. I mean, I literally have been laughing all week about it. I mean, my buddy Jeff, I've been quoting stuff to Jeff about it because I sent him the videos too, and I'm just like, I mean, it's weird, but I think I'm a fan of both Malignaggi and Lobov now.
No, I mean, it'll be a fun fight. It's one of those fights where they seem to really not like each other, and we haven't Well, I'll stay away from the UFC stuff. But we haven't got to that level of stuff yet. So,
this is
yeah,
more fun. You know, this is more fun. This is the type of trash talk that's all right. You don't have to take it to the level that some other folks are taking it out there.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that this is kind of the fun promotion. Two guys who don't like each other, but we haven't got to the point where we're getting violent and possibly bringing in other aspects of non-fight related stuff that could really harm the sport or the people involved. So with that said, look forward to your interviews that'll be playing after the show. Artem Lobov and Anthony Rumble Johnson. Fans can always follow us at Combat Hour on Twitter. You can follow me at MMA Hawk 21 on Twitter and Instagram. You can catch Ed at Carbazol on Twitter and at Carbeerzol on Instagram. Hopefully we get some bloody bare knuckle fights, and look forward to talking to you next week about how this all goes down and what fights they're looking to set up after this event.
Cool. See you next week.